In the moderna and vibrant city where our story is set, the routine of the powerful seems to revolve around elegant offices, important deals, and endless meetings. In the middle of all this, there is a mansion of imposing architecture that, although it shines on the outside, keeps an emotional void inside. Zhuo Fei, a successful CEO known for his strategic mind and relentless work ethic, lives there. But beyond the expensive suits and the decisions that move millions, there is something she often ignores: her daughter, Yi Yi. Yi Yi is only 8 years old, but her intelligence and sensitivity make her stand out. Although she has everything material that a girl could want, from a room full of toys to clothes from exclusive designers, what she really craves is something much simpler: time and attention. The absence of her mother, who died when she was very young, and the constant occupation of her father have left a void that neither luxury nor previous nannies have been able to fill. Zhuo Fei, although he loves his daughter deeply, does not know how to approach her. His way of expressing affection is limited to extravagant gifts, mistakenly thinking that money can compensate for his absence. However, Yi Yi is not an ordinary girl. A silent longing grows in his little heart to recover, something like a family. It is in this context that Lin Xiaopan appears, a young woman who is looking for a job as a nanny to pay off a personal debt. Lin is a simple woman, with a warm heart and infinite patience, qualities that have helped her overcome many obstacles in life. Upon arriving at the mansion, the first thing she notices is Yi Yi's inquisitive gaze, which evaluates her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Lin also perceives the latent loneliness in the girl, a loneliness that he recognizes because he has felt it in his own life. The first meeting between Zhuo Fei and Lin Xiaopan is marked by formalities and a slight disdain on the part of the CEO. For him, Lin is nothing more than a temporary employee, and his distrust of new people is obvious. But Lin, with his strong and kind character, does not allow himself to be intimidated. His only goal is to do his job well and earn the money necessary to solve his problems. As the days pass, Lin realizes that life in the mansion is more complicated than he imagined. Yi Yi, although at first she seems distant and somewhat rebellious, begins to show her sweetness. One afternoon, while Lin is organizing the girl's room, she finds a carefully stored dress. When asked, Yi Yi reveals with a trembling voice that it belongs to her mother, a treasure that she keeps so as not to forget its aroma. This moment creates a link between the two, a tacit understanding that begins to break down the barriers between them. Zhuo Fei, for his part, observes these changes from a distance. Although her pride does not allow her to admit it, she notices that her daughter seems more cheerful and open since Lin arrived. However, his reserved nature leads him to stay on the sidelines, focusing on his work and leaving personal relationships for another time. The arrival of Lin Xiaopan not only disrupts Yi Yi's routine, but also begins to unleash a series of events that will transform this incomplete family. Little by little, the pieces of an emotional puzzle begin to fit together, although none of those involve suspects yet. The story is just beginning, and both Yi's wounded heart and Zhuo Fei's emotional armor will be put to the test. Lin Xiaopan's early days at Zhuo Fei's mansion were marked by constant challenges. Although Yi Yi was not a spoiled child, she did have a particular way of testing people who came into her life. Deep down, she did it as a defense mechanism, afraid of getting attached and losing someone important again. Lin, however, was not like the previous nannies. Her serene character and her willingness to understand the little one made her someone special from the very beginning. One morning, while Lin was preparing breakfast, Yi Yi quietly approached, watching her intently. "Why are you always smiling?" Sire, the girl asked, with a mixture of curiosity and defiance in her voice. Lin, still beating the eggs, replied, "Because we never know who needs a smile to brighten up their day." That simple answer baffled Yi Yi, but it also planted a seed of respect in his heart. Over time, moments of genuine connection began to emerge between them. Lin discovered that Yi Yi loved bedtime stories, but not the ones that are read in books, but the ones that are made up on the spot. Lin, with his creativity and humor, started weaving stories full of adventures and magical characters, always leaving a lesson at the end. These nights became a ritual, a safe space where Yi could dream and laugh, something she hadn't experienced for a long time. However, not everything was so simple. There were days when Yi would shut down completely, sadly remembering her mother or feeling the absence of her father. On one of those days, Lin found her hugging a small stuffed animal in the corner of her room. Without saying anything, Lin sat down next to her and started humming a soft melody. After a few minutes of silence, Yi finally spoke up. "I miss Mom, and Dad is almost never around." Lin, with a tight heart, replied, "We can't change the past, but we can make the present more beautiful. And I'm here to help you do that, May." The other hand, Zuo Fei was still focused on his business, not realizing the impact his absence had on Yi. One night, when he returned late, he found his daughter asleep on the sofa, with Lin by her side. They had been waiting to show him a drawing that Yi had made for him. Although he felt a twinge of guilt, he quickly put it aside, attributing it to tiredness. But that scene was etched in his mind. One day, while Lin was organizing the playroom, he found a notebook full of drawings. Each page was a representation of Yi's life, her mother, her father working in a distant office, and a recent drawing showing the three of them together, with Lin included. That discovery touched Lin deeply, realizing how much it meant to the girl. Determined to help Yi find a little more happiness, Lin started organizing activities for the two of them, walks to the park, painting afternoons, and even a small cooking competition. These experiences not only helped Yi open up, but also taught Lin more about the girl's personality, her intelligence, her wit, and her heart full of love, albeit shy to show it. But the moment that marked a before and after in their relationship happened one rainy afternoon. Yi wanted to go out and play in the rain, something Lin initially refused. However, seeing the excitement in the girl's eyes, she decided to give in, but on one condition. They would both wear boots and umbrellas. Yi's laughter echoed all over the garden as they jumped in the puddles, forgetting about the rules and worries. That afternoon, Lin not only won Yi's heart completely, but also awakened something in his own heart, a protective instinct and a fondness that he did not expect to feel. Meanwhile, Zuo Fei began to notice the changes in his daughter. Although he didn't fully understand what was going on, it was undeniable that Yi was more cheerful. One day, arriving home early, he found her sharing an ice cream with Lin, both of them laughing as if nothing else mattered. That scene baffled and moved him in equal parts. How is it possible that this seemingly ordinary woman had transformed her home in such a short time? The initial challenges gave way to an emotional connection that began to cement something deeper. What none of them knew was that these small moments were just the beginning of a greater transformation, one that would change their lives forever. After weeks of living together, Yi no longer saw Lin as a simple nanny. To her, Lin was a friend, a confidant, and in her innocent imagination, the perfect person to fill the void in her family. But there was a problem. Her father, Zuo Fei, was still as distant as ever, immersed in his work and with little time to devote to them. It was then that the little girl, with her childish creativity and her heart full of hope, came up with a bold plan to reunite her father with Lin. It all started one afternoon while I was drawing with Lin in the living room. "Do you like my dad?" Yi asked suddenly with the spontaneity typical of her age. Lin, somewhat puzzled, replied, "Well, your dad is a hard-working and very intelligent man. Of course I respect him." But Yi, with her insightful gaze, did not settle for that answer. "You should like him more," she murmured, almost like a whisper. Lin let out a nervous laugh, not suspecting that those words were the prelude to an elaborate plan. Yi started with little tricks. First, he pretended that he needed help with tasks that required the presence of both of them. "Dad, I don't understand this math problem," he was saying while Lin was nearby. "Can you help me? Lin also wants to know how to solve it." Zuo Fei, although skeptical at first, would get involved, and those casual moments turned into unique moments of togetherness. Then Yi insisted on family activities. "Dad, can the three of us go out this weekend? Lin says he's never seen the park with cherry blossoms." Although Zuo Fei preferred to spend his free time resting, his daughter's insistence and the way her eyes sparkled convinced him. So one sunny morning, the three of them went to the park. Lin, with his cheerful disposition, found a way to break Zuo Fei's seriousness, suggesting a friendly kite-flying competition. To everyone's surprise, Zuo Fei put aside his formality and actively participated, laughing as he hadn't done for years. But Yi Yi's plan was not without its complications. Zuo Fei, although he was starting to feel more comfortable with Lin's presence, still maintained an emotional barrier. One night, while Lin was going through Yi Yi's school papers, he came into the room. "Thank you for everything you do for my daughter," he said with a serious tone. Lin, although surprised, replied modestly, "She is a special girl, it's easy to love her." That brief exchange was etched in the minds of both of them as a small step towards something more. Yi Yi, for her part, did not give up. Seeing that her father was not taking the initiative, she decided to be more direct. During a dinner party, she made an unexpected comment. "Dad, I think Lin would be a great mum." The silence that followed was so dense that it seemed to fill the entire room. Lin blushed deeply while a bewildered Zuo Fei cleared his throat before changing the subject. But even though both adults tried to ignore those words, the message remained floating in the air. The next day, Yi Yi implemented a new phase of his plan. He set up a date day at home. She drew a sign that said, "Special date for Dad and Lin," and hung it on the dining room door. She decorated the table with flowers picked from the garden and used her imagination to create a simple but charming menu. When Zuo Fei returned from work, he found his daughter and Lin at the table, waiting for him with an complicit smile. Although he was uncomfortable at first, he couldn't help but be moved by Yi Yi's effort. Over dinner, Yi Yi insisted that they share funny stories from their childhood. Lin talked about how he used to climb trees and always ended up with scrapes, while Zuo Fei recalled an episode where he tried to cook for his mother and ended up burning down the kitchen. Although the conversation began with some rigidity, it was soon filled with sincere laughter. Lin noticed how Zuo Fei relaxed and showed a more human side, something that rarely happened. As the days passed, Yi Yi's efforts began to bear fruit. Zuo Fei no longer saw Lin only as his daughter's nanny, but as someone who had brought warmth and joy to his home. Lin, although still maintaining a professional attitude, couldn't help but feel a special connection with both of them. However, both adults were too cautious to take the next step. Ye's plan, although full of small victories, still faced challenges, but the girl had no doubts. She was determined to unite the two most important people in her life. And although neither Zuo Fei nor Lin knew it yet, they were slowly walking towards a common destination, guided by the heart of a girl who just wanted a happy family. Despite the progress in the relationship between Zuo Fei, Lin Xiaopan and Yi Yi, the apparent harmony was soon challenged by misunderstandings and tensions. The emotions at play and the differences in their worlds made the path to a true union much more complicated than Yi Yi had imagined. One afternoon, while Lin and Yi Yi were in the garden organizing a little treasure hunt, Zuo Fei arrived earlier than usual. From a distance, she saw her daughter laughing out loud, while Lin, with a beaming smile, played next to her. For a moment, Zuo Fei felt a strange mixture of joy and jealousy. It was evident that Lin had achieved what he had not, to fill Yi Yi's life with happiness. Even if he didn't express it, that observation left a mark on his heart, a feeling of inadequacy that he didn't know how to handle. The first big conflict arose when Zuo Fei, on one of his rare nights off, tried to take Yi Yi out to dinner. However, the girl flatly refused, arguing that Lin had already prepared her favorite dish at home. "You're always busy, Dad." "Lin does know what I like," he said, with no intention of hurting, but his words hit like a dagger. Zuo Fei, his pride hurt, ended up arguing with Lin, accusing her of interfering too much in the relationship with his daughter. Lin, although initially surprised, remained calm. "Mr. Zuo, the only thing I've tried is to give Yi Yi something he lacks, time and attention. But if he thinks I'm doing more harm than good, I can leave," she said. with a mixture of dignity and sadness. That statement left Zuofei speechless, but the misunderstanding remained in the air, creating an awkward distance between them. Yi Yi, realizing the tension, tried to remedy the situation. She decided to prepare a surprise breakfast for both of them with her favorite toast recipe. Although the result was a culinary disaster, the gesture managed to break some of the ice. Seeing Yi Yi and Lin's flour-stained faces, Zuofei couldn't help but laugh, remembering how important this small family nucleus was, even with its imperfections. However, the tensions did not end there. One night, Zuofei found Yi Yi wearing her mother's dress hidden in the attic. Although Lin had tried to convince the girl not to, Yi Yi insisted on taking him, saying that it was the only way to feel her mother close. The scene was too much for Zuofei, who, through restrained tears, berated Lin for not controlling Yi Ji. "That dress is a sacred memory. How could you allow this?" he exclaimed, visibly affected. Lin, instead of defending himself, calmly replied, "I understand what that dress means to you, but I also understand what it means to Yi Yi. She needs to feel that her mother is still present, even if it is in this way." His words made Zuofei reflect, but his pride did not allow him to apologize at the moment. Gradually, things began to improve. Zuofei, influenced by Lin's maturity, decided to try to understand his daughter better. She began to read the stories she loved, although she did not always understand the fantastic stories that fascinated her so much. She also agreed to join a craft afternoon, where she ended up covered in glue and glitter. Those small gestures, however clumsy, meant a lot to Yi Yi, who began to see her father in a new light. The final reconciliation came unexpectedly. One night, Yi Yi fell ill with a high fever. Lin didn't leave her side, taking devoted care of her and making sure that Zuofei didn't worry more than necessary. "She'll be all right. She just needs rest and affection," she told Zuofei as he looked at her gratefully. That night, watching Lin lull Yi to sleep, Zuofei finally understood the value of his presence in their lives. The next day, Zuofei approached Lin while she was preparing breakfast. "I want to thank you for everything you have done for Yi Yi. For us," he said, with a sincerity he had not shown before. Lin, although surprised, simply smiled. "I do it because I care. They both matter to me." That moment marked a turning point. Although there were still obstacles to overcome, Zuofei, Lin and Yi Yi began to act more like a family, learning to support each other and accept their differences. The connection that had started as a shy spark now shone brightly, promising a future full of possibilities. The days at Zuofei's mansion began to slowly transform. What was once a cold, formality-filled space was now brimming with laughter, warm conversations and a sense of home. Although Lin Xiaopan was still performing her role as a nanny, her bond with Yi Yi and Zuofei had transcended the professional. They were now a family in the making, even if none of them had officially declared it. Yi Yi, always the mastermind behind this transformation, felt happier than ever. Her father was more present, Lin had become her closest confidant, and the three of them were enjoying moments together that had seemed impossible before. But Yi knew that something was still missing, formalizing the union between her father and Lin. One day, while walking in the park, Yi had a brilliant idea. "Dad, can we have a picnic this weekend?" he asked enthusiastically. Zuofei, who could rarely resist his daughter's requests, accepted without hesitation. What I didn't know was that Yi was planning to turn that picnic into a special occasion. The girl spent the whole week preparing details with Lin, without revealing her true purpose. She chose a quiet place under a leafy tree and organized a basket full of her father and Lin's favorite foods. On the day of the picnic, Yi insisted that Lin wear a floral dress that she had found in her closet. "You look like a princess," she said with a mischievous smile. Lin didn't understand the comment, but gratefully accepted the compliment. When they arrived at the park, the weather was perfect. While they were eating and chatting, Yi took out a small envelope from his backpack. "Dad, Lin, I want to read something to you," she announced, attracting his attention. Unfolding a carefully decorated sheet of paper, he began to read a letter he had written. "Dear Dad and dear Lin, ever since Mom left, I always thought our family was broken. But then Lin came along and something changed. Dad, you smile more now, and Lynn makes me feel loved and safe. They are both my favorite people in the world, and I think they are also perfect for each other. That's why I want to ask you something. Can you be a real family? Not just for me, but because I know they make each other happy." Yiyi's words left Zhuo Fei and Lin speechless. The girl's sincerity and bravery resonated deeply with both of them. Zhuo Fei, for the first time, dropped all his barriers. Looking at Lin, he said, "I don't know if I've ever told you, but since you came into our lives, everything is different. Better. I can't imagine our life without you." Lin, moved to tears, replied, "You and Yiyi have given me something I didn't. No, I needed. A place where I belong. I don't know what to say." Yiyi, with a triumphant smile, got up and hugged them both. "That means yes," Tan, he exclaimed, with the joy of one who has just had his greatest wish fulfilled. From that day on, the relationship between the three became closer than ever. Zhuo Fei began to delegate more at work, devoting time to family activities such as cooking together or watching movies on weekends. Lin, for her part, found in them the love and stability she had been looking for all her life. Months later, Zhuo Fei surprised Yiyi and Lin with an unexpected gesture. During a special dinner at home with candles and flowers adorning the table, he proposed to Lin in front of Yi's excited gaze. "It's not just for us, but because I think together we can be a family we've always dreamed of having," she said, as Lin accepted with tears of happiness. The outcome was exactly as Yiyi had planned in her heart. Her father found love, Lin found a home, and she finally had the family she wanted so much. If you enjoyed this story as much as we did telling it to you, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any more stories, full of emotion and love. Thanks for joining us here, and see you in the next video. See you soon.